We made this.
Hello and welcome to Right in the Childhood, the podcast about kids' TV, right here on the We Made This podcast. Every episode, my friend Fraser and I, we sit down, we talk about an old telly programme we loved as a kid, then we watch some episodes and see if it fits our happy memories or it hits us right in the childhood. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this episode, and with me, as always, is Fraser. Hello, Fraser.
Hello, Mark. Hello, listeners. How's it going? Yeah, these shows hit us right in the childhood in one of two ways, or multiple ways. They either hit us in a good one, it's like, oh, it feels so wholesome, or they hit us and go, oh, that was a brutal punch. That was a bit of a sucker punch.
Yeah,
some of the belt.
Some of them have hit me right in the childhood, and some of them hit, right in the childhood.
All right. Yeah.
It's all about the intonation.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it. Important.
Yeah. We do this show because, well, frankly, you came up with the idea, Fraser, and I thought it was brilliant, and it's an excuse to watch old tat from the 80s and 90s for me, and
noughties,
less old tat.
Some 90s, yeah. Yeah, so it's like spanning across 3 generations. Neither of us are technically millennials, but we also are sort of millennials. Like you're Gen X, Millennial, sort of like borderline.
Yeah.
Millennial, Gen Z, borderline.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you get like 2 borderline people who get on.
Yeah.
Or 2 people from different generations that get on.
Well, technically we're both the same generation, but not the same generation, which is kind of fun.
Weird.
But basically we've got a bit of an age difference and we're mates, and that's cool.
And we both like kids' TV.
Yeah, we do. No, we both like an excuse to watch kids' TV and pretending we do. This is art, Fraser.
This is art.
This is art. This is our art.
Got to examine.
This is our artistic output.
Exactly, yeah.
But what we are also, and part of how we formed our friendship, was our love of Marvel comics and comic books and stuff like that. And we've podcasted about comic books and stuff like in the past as well.
You're doing a smooth little segue.
I am doing a little bit of a segue.
Yeah.
And
that's what we're swinging on to this time.
Yeah. Don't suggest swinging. Not that kind of thing. Thwip. That's a bit more thwip. But yeah, we have always bonded over like Marvel MCU stuff. We've even done quite a lot of guest appearances together on the We Made This MCU podcast. Podcast 616.
616, yeah.
And, you know, there's quite a few episodes with us on that.
We did a whole comic book podcast radio
for
show.
A year. Yeah.
Crazy.
But what we've never done is cover any Marvel type sitch on our podcast about kids' TV.
That's outrageous.
I
feel like we should correct that.
We should.
Especially with it being, you know, December and a little film's coming out.
Yes, there's a new film coming out. And it's got Spider-Man in it.
Exactly. And Spider-Man is my fave.
He is your fave?
It is your episode.
It is my
I feel
pick.
Like I should talk less about Spider-Man.
Well,
I might save it for a future date. I might do a Spider-Man as well.
Surely not.
Oh, no. What?
Surely not. But no, so we are watching the Spider-Man from my youth rather than your youth. My Spider-Man, or at least the one I remember the most vividly, was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Not the one from the 60s.
No, not that one.
That's not your childhood.
No, you're so rude. Every time.
I'm joking.
So, have you ever watched Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
I've not, but I know weird knowledge about it. So I know it came out in 1982, I want to say. And it came out the
80s.
Came out the same years, and like there was 2 Spider-Man animated shows that came out at the same time.
Were there?
There was this and one just called Spider-Man. And I think they both only lasted 1 season, maybe 2. But
I didn't actually know that.
But my memory of it is the Spider-Man mainly is the 90s one. Like if we're talking cartoons, which came just after this. And I always thought that would have been your childhood, but this also makes sense.
So
and
what's
also
really
the type of
weird,
you are.
what's really weird about the 90s Spider-Man cartoon is that I absolutely lapped up the X-Men 90s cartoon, and they were contemporary of each other.
Yeah.
But I just didn't watch the Spider-Man one.
Yeah, it's like 2 years. Like I think X-Men was 92, and then Spider-Man's 94. That's mad.
I just wonder how I missed it, because the
It might have
X-Men
been-
was a big deal to me.
It might have been the UK, how the UK got it. Like, 'cause I feel like the Spider-Man 90s cartoon was on when I was a kid.
Well, I
On
have watched it
Fox.
since on Disney Plus. I've
Yeah.
binged the whole thing, and it's
Yeah.
really, really good.
I'll be honest as well. I was going to stick that on the podcast, but I'd already binged it as soon as Disney Plus came out, and I was like, it's not really a rewatch.
But that is genuinely sublimely good, and
It's good, yeah.
they even crossed over with the 90s X-Men
They did,
cartoon as well. The same voice
It
actors.
was the Marvel animated universe before the MCU.
Yeah.
They did a whole crossover. It's
Yeah,
really
it
cool.
was.
Very cool stuff. And obviously, we've talked in the past about my love for a crossover.
You
so-
do love a crossover, but in fact, we even I think you mentioned the X-Men and the Spider-Man
Yeah,
crossover when
yeah.
we talked about that. But I hadn't done my binge of the Spider-Man cartoon at that
Just
point.
quite yet.
Having subsequently binged it, I'm like, fucking hell, he was right, because I didn't think you were right.
No,
So
you're
hands
lying.
up.
You're lying to
I
me.
didn't say you lied.
Yeah.
I thought you might have misremembered.
Oh.
But no, you absolutely were right, and I was wrong. So yeah, it was cool.
That was like my introduction to my introduction to any Marvel characters through Spider-Man. And Marvel know what they're doing, especially on the animated shows. Like, if you talk about like Ultimate Spider-Man, which is a more recent one, they introduce a lot of characters that they want to use in the MCU. They'll put them in Ultimate Spider-Man, so like kids will know
Right.
who they are.
Yeah, well, apparently, our friends over at Marvel vs. Marvel have looked at the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s as part of their
yeah.
podcast. And listening to that, I learnt an interesting fact from Rob Halden, the host.
Go ahead.
Apparently, the character of Whistler
Yeah.
from the Blade comics and the Blade films
Yeah.
hadn't existed in any form, any shape, or any way until the Spider-Man cartoon.
That's pretty cool.
So, Blade, the movie, had been written and they'd introduced Whistler as a character, and it was a completely new one. It hadn't been in the comics.
Yeah.
And they liaised with the people who made the film and brought in Whistler as a character into the Spider-Man cartoon. But it got released before Blade did.
Oh,
so the first
everyone
ever
thought it was
time,
that.
yeah, the first ever time you saw Whistler was in that particular 90s Spider-Man cartoon. So there you go.
This,
But we're not doing that. We're doing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
I was going to say, because we'll talk about No Way Home. There's a rumor. It's went round because there's a woman in the car. Like, if you see the first trailer, there's a woman in a car who's talking. Well, they're not talking to people. It's like a big, who is that woman? And there's a police officer who's in the 90s cartoon that people think it might be her. And it's like, little tip of the cap.
That would
Yeah.
be cool.
But yeah, we're not talking about the 90s one because I feel like I could talk a good 2 to 3 hours about that 90s
Yeah,
one.
I mean, it wasn't part of my childhood, but it seems like it was part of your childhood. I mean,
was huge, yeah,
But
but-
because we both watched it, we can't really do the format, can we?
But I have got many Spider-Man cartoons that I watched. And obviously the Sam Raimi trilogy was part of my childhood as well. But don't worry, I've got a Spider-Man in mind.
We're feeling all Spidey because of the new film coming out.
Exactly,
And that
very
was,
excited.
yeah. So
I'm just always feeling Spider-Man.
You are
I'm
always
I'm
feeling
always down
Spidey.
to
You do like
watch a bit
Spidey.
of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I honestly could just do a whole podcast on Spider-Man. But, you know.
I mean, there's no reason why you
I know,
couldn't.
I mean, I find it hard to commit to...
I've got plenty of podcasts.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
want to do another one.
Yeah, you do a lot. Of,
I do. You could do the Spider-Man podcast, though.
kinda.
You could totally do that.
I'll put a feeler out here.
There's a Batman podcast on our network, Gotham University. That's dead good. I've really enjoyed their
If I
stuff.
come up with a snazzy name, then I'll think of one.
The Spider-Pan podcast. It could be like your podcast about
Well, so it's
Spider-Man
just
and
Spider-Man
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan. And
Yeah.
all across it. It was funny. I remember I typed in Peter Pan, I think on Disney Plus, and a load of Spider-Man cartoons came up, and I was like,
Fascinating.
I can't really see the relation, but
Anyway, so we're not talking about Peter Pan. We're
Well,
not talking about the Spider-Man 90s
From the
cartoon. We're
90s.
talking about Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
who are? Oh wait, let me get this: Iceman and a fire character,
Firestar.
Firestar, yeah, not Human Torch.
No.
Good.
Firestar.
Good.
And I think there was one more, wasn't there? Or was it just those two?
I think it was the 3, yeah.
Because I don't remember I remember loving it as a kid, but I don't really remember very much about it at all. Obviously, I know who Spider-Man
Yeah.
is. I know who Iceman is. And I know one fact. Firestar didn't exist.
I know it's just for this cartoon,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
She now exists in the comics. It's a similar thing to Whistler, actually.
Yeah, and Harley Quinn's the big one for that. Like Batman's animated universe, they introduced Harley Quinn in that, and then she became a big thing.
I didn't know that either. So that's fascinating that these comic book characters that we think of as comic book characters are actually created for the telly.
Yeah, and I think there'll be some for like the MCU as well. I can definitely see. Or if they're not already, there will be in the future as well. It's very cool. Very cool. Or like the way you can just sort of... I liked that these shows started to learn... I think a lot of it happened because of the Spider-Man cartoon and the Batman cartoon. Was a lot of people were more willing to like lean on the adaptation side or lean on the based on. It was like, or like we can merge characters together to make one character.
Which they have done in the MCU,
because there's a lot of characters in Marvel Comics and like a lot of them are very similar, so you can just sort of amalgam together in it.
There's lots of very weird characters in Marvel Comics that I don't think we'll ever see in the big screen. On the big screen.
Howard the Duck made it though, so you know.
Mate, I was over the moon that we got Howard the Duck in What If. I love Howard the Duck.
That's it. He's got really big play. He's got more of a play in What If than Iceman. Iceman just keeps dying.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck.
Okay, Howard the Duck.
I was only expecting one Howard episode, and we got 2.
It was pretty good as well because Howard the Duck was supposed to have a Hulu series, but he didn't.
Yeah,
like MODOK and
MODOK was great as well.
Hit Monkey as well.
But that's the thing. A character like MODOK, how the fuck did he end up actually getting a show?
It's just people who are passionate about it. Patton Oswalt, I reckon, was.
But there's just weird characters.
And I think this is going to be a weird one
Comics.
as well as Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It feels like, my prediction is it's going to be camp as Christmas.
Tis
the season.
I also...
Ho, ho, ho.
Lol. I also think that the animation's probably going to be cack.
Do you think?
Because I think I'd remember if it was good animation, maybe. I don't know.
What did you think of the 90s animation? Because obviously, like, you can tell it's of its time, but you sort of... I feel like you embrace it. It's like when you're reading a comic book, like... the art style becomes an important part of it, so...
I think with the 90s Spider-Man, because the storylines are so strong, you
get lost in the world.
Yeah, you can cope with the animation being only okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't know, I remember so little of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I literally chose to put this on because it's Spider Month or whatever we're going to call it. Because of the new film coming out, we thought it'd be nice to tie in and do the Spider-Man from our childhoods.
Tis the season. We wanted to do about a guy in a red suit. So,
for fuck's sake, it's November. It's not anything like Christmas yet. Don't give me that shit.
Yes.
You think it's Christmas the moment that it strikes midnight on Halloween.
So, yeah.
Get in the
Literally,
sea.
yeah.
Get in the sea.
Do it.
Yeah, so Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I don't know why they needed His Amazing Friends, because he's pretty amazing himself.
Maybe to differentiate. I can't believe that 2 came out. 2 came out the same year. Maybe it was just to differentiate. And like they already had the 60s animated one, which is incredible for memes alone.
I mean, I've watched the 60s one as well as a kid, but...
I just love the memes.
I think I wanted to watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends because I remember it fondly, but don't remember it at all, and that's weird. I remember loving it. I remember it being something I watched regularly, but I couldn't tell you anything other than Iceman was in it and Firestar was cool. And
which was your favourite out of His Amazing Friends?
I think Firestar because I like. I'm not suggesting I'm a pyromaniac.
I'm a pyromaniac.
No, but I like fire. Fire's cool. Fire's
no ice is cool.
Good
Fire's
point.
hot.
Good point. Shit.
Just broke your brain there.
But no, I
broke the glass.
So I don't know how we're going to pick what episodes to watch. We'll watch the pilot. Should we just see the...
We could probably just go on like an IMDb and see what the best
rated one. Let's do
or
that.
If there's one that is curious, like if there's a character. It'd be cool if there was like a... No, there's not going to be a multiverse storyline, is there? It's like something to relate.
Doubt it. But there might be an interesting
to
guest
No Way
star.
Home, yeah.
Like if, I don't know, Venom's in it or the Silver Surfer.
Oh, that's true. Venom. Gotta get him, Venom.
That sequel's coming out as well soon.
October. Yeah, so there you go. We're in between the two.
In between the two.
Exactly.
Shit, I've just pointed out that we recorded this in September.
We don't know what time we're on.
Wibbly wobbly time. We did Doctor Who for our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, and we've been talking to Doctor Strange now, so he's been doing the time.
Yeah.
It's all that jazz. I will say we took a massive break from podcasting, but obviously because I've been living my life. And I don't know if I'm back to full swing or not.
Because we recorded so many episodes before you went to camp, we had like 5
backlog,
months worth of episodes recorded, and this is genuinely the first time we've done this in
catching up again.
4 months.
It's crazy.
3.5.
Could you
4
tell?
months.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, I mean, I know the format.
Could you tell the rust?
I mean, but I guess because
I'm glad we're talking about Spider-Man because that's something I can get on board. Like, you know what I mean? My brain can focus on it then.
I think because I've picked something that
it's easier to
I don't have much
toe in.
memories of,
Yeah.
that it's more difficult to talk about the premise of it, and also because you know Spider-Man so well, I don't need to explain anything to you or any background.
He's the one with the webs, right?
Yeah. And
Where's
it was
the red?
I'm presuming it was American and imported from America.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
What were your memories as a child of the character overall of Spider-Man? Because I'll talk about that when I'm doing my episode on Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's played a big part in my life.
So, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends I loved as a kid. And Spider-Man was always a character that I knew as a Marvel character, and
he's a flagship one, isn't he?
Yeah, but I was more into the X-Men as I got a little bit older because of the X-Men cartoon. And like I say, I didn't encounter the Spider-Man cartoon. And when I started reading comics in my early teens, it was through a import company called Comag. And they only really imported the shit that Americans didn't want to read. So I never really got access to Spider-Man comics.
You probably got like a Ben Reilly.
Maybe. But by the time I actually found a comic shop in Wolverhampton City Centre, that was when I got access to Spider-Man comics, because he was actually importing everything.
Yes.
And that was probably 15, 16. So as a young kid with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and then general kind of Spider-Man's a famous character.
Yeah.
But not really until 15, 16 was I actually reading and getting modern Spider-Man stuff. So Spider-Man's weird for me, I think. I never formulated a huge
connection
with the character like you did. And the one character I did was a really obscure character because, again, they imported the shit that no one else wanted.
Yeah.
The character that I really liked was fucking Thunderstrike. No one's heard of Thunderstrike.
I thought you were going to go down Spider-Man's back catalogue and it was like, Morbius.
No, I'm talking about basically the comics I had access to were the issues of Thor that weren't selling well because they gave a mortal.
Yeah.
The Thor's hammer, a man called Eric Masterson, and he became Thunderstrike subsequently. But the Infinity Crisis, I think, was Eric Masterson as Thor rather than Thor as Thor.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. But no one remembers this character because he was so short-lived and incredibly unpopular.
Yeah.
But because that was the only character I had access to, that was the one that I kind of bonded with and really liked.
Unique path. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is like your Spider-Man cartoon, and then Eric Masterson is your Thor. It's like...
It is a bit weird, isn't it?
Very alt.
Yeah. You can't even read fucking Thunderstrike on...
the Marvel app.
The Marvel app. They just haven't even bothered to put it on.
I wonder if they realised they even had him.
Maybe. Yeah, no.
I
I still want that Thunderstrike Disney Plus show.
show.
I want that.
With Firestar.
Oh, we could put Firestar on as well. Yeah, why not?
It's quite interesting that Firestar is a character here, because I'm sure Firestar is a character in DC as well. But there's a lot of characters. Did you know Marvel have their own version of Scarecrow?
Yes, but I can't remember who it is.
It's just called Scarecrow. So.
Is it just called Scarecrow? Yeah. Well, DC have their own Thor because he's a mythical character. Yeah, there's no copyright. There's a DC Thor, and he's just not very interesting.
No.
Yeah.
There's a couple like that. A couple characters like that that they're just sort of used for art's sake. And it will be interesting to see where, because Iceman's a huge character. I feel like, especially with the LGBT community as well, and like how
I don't think
he's become a big thing.
Yeah,
but I don't think
he won't be gay in this.
I don't know. He might seem very gay.
He might be camp.
It's the 80s.
Yeah, true.
But we're like, oh yeah,
jeans, white t-shirts tucked into the blue jeans.
I am a bit gutted that I appreciate that we've got Firestar and it's good to have female representation, but if it was Human Torch, like the friendship between him and Peter Parker in the comics anyway,
it makes no sense why they put in Firestar other than to put in a girl. I think
so. Yeah, could have made Jenny Storm.
Yeah,
right? Why not?
I genuinely think it was to put in a girl.
Yeah.
But of course the representation was a girl
in
the late 80s, early 90s.
Like,
it's hardly what we get now and hardly what we expect now.
I think if they did a reboot with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, you got Johnny Storm as the bisexual or pansexual, whichever you want to go.
Is Johnny Storm bi?
Yeah.
Good growth.
I think he's more pan as well, because the amount of alien species he's probably dealt with.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting storylines with Johnny Storm. But, like, yeah, you know him as bi-pan, and then you've got Iceman as, you know, gay, and then you've got Spider-Man. You know, there's room for a reboot. And they could add more Amazing Friends. They could have female ones.
We could do with some, like, black Amazing Friends and...
Oh, yeah.
Like a nice, diverse group of Amazing Friends.
Yeah. Well, you got, like, Miles as well and stuff like
That's
that.
true. You could just put Miles in there.
It could be Spider-Men and their Amazing Friends.
Yeah, it could. It could.
Go. Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen.
To be fair,
but that's just the multiverse then, isn't it?
Disney are doing a lot with Spider-Man at the moment. I don't know if you've seen this. Like, it's very cutesy. There's like a little Spider-Man cartoon that's going on. It's aimed for like 3 to 5.
Yeah, I won't be watching that.
It's very cute though.
Have you watched all of it?
No, I've just seen
Lie.
it. No, I've seen it advertised. Not clicked on it yet.
Lie. I love the yet.
Yet.
Yeah.
It's great for my attention span as well, because I think the episode's only a few minutes long. But very cutesy. Very cutesy.
So I really don't know what to expect, even though this was my pick. I don't really know what to expect, other than obviously Spider-Man.
I will say, I'll be
doing
honest,
stuff with two other guys.
We usually do. Well, when you say it like that.
Oh, that's not what I meant.
Whoa.
You're asexual. That wouldn't even turn you on.
No, it wouldn't. I will say, we usually do like a top 5. My prediction, I was going to be bold and just say, yeah, this is going to be number 1 no matter what. My prediction is it's going to be number 1.
I think it's going to enter the top 5.
It's going to have to, like, I don't know, offend me in some way for it to not to be a top 5. Like, it would literally have to, I don't know, Spider-Man would just have to say, I'm the worst character alive. And even then, it'd probably still be top 5. I don't know what it would do. Yeah, it would honestly have to offend me in some way.
Right, well, let's do it. Let's watch some Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Thank you for listening to Right in the Childhood. We've been overwhelmed by the love and support that we receive from our listeners. If you're enjoying the show, you can buy us a coffee via our Ko-fi website. That's ko-fi.com/Right in the Childhood. ko-fi.com/Right in the Childhood. There's no subscriptions or anything like that, so just buy us a coffee if you fancy. We do this for the love, but it's always good to get bought a drink. P.S. Neither of us actually enjoy coffee. We'll probably spend it on vegan takeaway. Thank you.
Spider Friends. Go for it.
I mean, if you want.
Right, we're going for it. That's what we're doing right now.
Well, we went for it. We watched Spider-Man and his amazing friends. We watched... There's only one series, so...
Didn't last long.
No.
24 episodes, is it?
Yeah. We watched episode 1, Triumph of the Green Goblin, and episode 21, The Origin of the Spider Friends.
Which was nicely narrated by Stanley.
It was.
Apparently a highly requested episode according to Stanley's narration.
Should we talk about the first episode first?
Yeah, go on. First things first on my list.
Ugh, the theme tune.
Iconically 80s.
It was. I don't think it was 80s. I think it was dated for the 80s.
Yeah.
It was more 60s and 70s.
And a really sad thing about any superhero animated thing didn't have a memorable theme song. Like, most of the theme songs talk about, like...
I don't know.
Superheroes. No, but it's not exactly like Spider-Man.
No.
Or even Spectacular. Or the X-Men one. You know what I mean? It wasn't...
No, it was...
in comparison.
It feels like...
To others.
Yeah, it feels like it was dated. The music throughout both episodes actually was a bit kind of...
I did like the little cute logo that said like Marvel's Comics Animation. It's got Spider-Man on there, you know, and like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, but again, that was really dated.
It took me back to the 80s, and this show probably more than, actually maybe not more so than your stuff, did feel like we were taking a trip in a time capsule. And I guess that's what I sort of expect visiting the Spider-Man cartoons. Like when I watched the 90s, I knew it wasn't going to be like a recent thing. I knew it was going to be, you know, I am going back in time, and I'm like, I guess this stuff I'm more prepared for, because most of iconic comic book storylines are from 80s, 90s, 60s,
True.
like all over. So you know that it's the story more than anything. And the stories weren't that strong, but they were, classic Saturday morning cartoon thing.
I think what's good about the stories that inspire the MCU is that they've got these great stories that were perhaps a little simple at the time, that they flesh out and make modern, and the original stories as inspiration are fantastic. And you're right, they were written around these times. But this, obviously because of the inclusion of Firestar and Iceman, all the bets are off, because they weren't friends in the comic books.
No, it was bizarre. Like, Spidey and Iceman have become friends, and I wonder if they've become friends because of the show, or
maybe
vice versa. But yeah, and we did notice a lot. Firestar was basically just Human Torch. They could have just Jenny Storm.
She really did.
Although
really did just have the Human Torches.
I did get my hopes. I heard the last name Jones, and obviously MJ in the current MCU is Michelle Jones. And I was like, oh, depending on her last name, maybe Michelle Jones in the MCU could become a Firestar later on. But it's Angelica Jones, so it's probably less likely.
Yeah, it's Angelica Jones. And again, as we said, she was created for this. I'm pretty sure she ended up in the comics a little as well. But
yeah, even if it was like comics that were a spin-off from the show. Which happens.
But this was made in 1981, so it was earlier than I thought. So I was probably watching repeats, because in 1981 I was only 3.
Yeah.
I was very little.
Definitely repeats.
Although, I don't know, my nephew was into superheroes at 4.
I do feel, though, like, now they are, like, superhero shows are more, not all of them, but there are some that are targeted to 3 to 4 year olds. Like we talked about that Spider-Man that's currently
PJ Masks.
Exactly, and, like, even the Paw Patrol are superheroes occasionally every now and then. And there are some Spider-Man and Ant-Man stuff that I see on Disney Plus. I'm like, and then I realise, I'm not the target demo.
No.
But then there are also, like, the older...
You kind of are the target demo for this, because you would watch it, basically.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'd stick this on at any point. It wouldn't be my first choice of all the Spider-Man animated ones.
No, there's a lot of good Spider-Man animated stuff, to be honest with you.
I don't know if it'd be my last choice. No, it might.
That's interesting. We'll look at
Maybe
that
we'll
in
have
a
to watch
minute.
them all.
Well, I'm not particularly upset by that idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the theme tune was outdated, the music was outdated, the animation was
And when you say outdated, do you even mean...
I mean, for that time, yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Whereas the art stills, which told you the name of the episode, they were gorgeous.
Yeah, they were well cool. I liked them. And they did remind me of, like, Saturday morning staples of, like, you see that and like, it's different, yeah.
Yeah, kind of Popeye used to do that, didn't it? And a couple of others used to do that. And it was
good for the Green Goblin. Like, I like the design of the Green Goblin in this.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool in this. And, it's that the iconography of it all. Spider-Man looks good in his suit, Green Goblin looks good in his, and Firestar and Iceman, I feel like maybe it's because they're not as well known that their costumes maybe suffered a bit more than Spider-Man's, but their transformations as well. Like Iceman's, he turned into a square of ice and then
he encapsulated himself in ice.
But then Firestar was more like Glitter Star, because she just glittered around, and I'd get it if she turned into a full fire and then into it, but she didn't. It's just glossy a bit.
I always used to mock how Storm would go, I am Storm and I am magical, and would then end up in her costume.
Yeah.
Which she does in the first episode of the X-Men cartoon and many others.
Of course.
And it's never explained how being able to control the weather means you can do an instant costume change. Yeah. But she wasn't the first character to do that. It was clearly Firestar. Yeah. So maybe that's where they got that from. It was 12 years after this.
Yeah, of course.
So, I don't know, maybe it was that. But,
Firestar set the trend for quick changes.
I mean, I bitched about the lack of physics working the way it did on the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles episode.
Superhero physics.
Oh, the physics in this really, really bothered me. And... yeah, there was a lot of stuff where, even if you are a superhero, that defies gravity.
Yeah.
You can't swing backwards into a wind. No, that's not how the human body works. Yeah. And we looked at each other at one point. The Green Goblin had like a a test tube that he poured into another test tube.
Back into the same test tube.
And that was science. That's science.
I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
It's just science. There was science.
Science doing science things.
Yeah, and it was an explanation of everything was science. It's sciencey, and therefore science, that's the answer.
It makes sense. It's my kind of science. Just tell me your science.
And I think we're just a little bit more used to slightly more sophisticated stuff now.
Like science based on fact rather than complete fiction, I guess.
I wonder whether it was stuff like Jurassic Park that was perhaps the start of being a bit less patronising when it comes to science. Does science for science and science. Science.
Yeah.
Science, Fraser, science.
Yeah.
You know science?
Yeah.
Science. It's sciencey.
There's a lot of science and maths in The Simpsons though as well, to be fair. So maybe it was. Maybe The Simpsons that changed it. Simpsons did it. Okay.
And for a first episode, I thought it was a little bit brave to have a superhero costume party with superheroes dressing as other superheroes.
It was very
quite confusing.
It was nice because they did like little Easter eggs, and you can tell whoever was directing / writing had a blast because they were just like, I'm going to put this character in, this rando in. A lot of Spider-Man, of course, in there.
So Spider-Man was dressed up as Spider-Man with a really bad mask.
Yeah.
He had the worst costume.
He had the worst Spider-Man costume that was there. You really inconvenience yourself here. Just go as, And then Bobby Drake Iceman was Captain America, which is cool. But we got really confused because Angelica was like...
Spider-Woman.
A Spider-Woman. And I'm like, oh wait, is Spider-Woman in this? Is she one of the... And I was like, oh no, wait, she's dressed to wind up the neck. And you're like...
She was dressed as Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, which also had its own cartoon, which I also watched as a kid.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's even older than this, though.
I believe so. I believe that was the 70s. There's a whole... that was because of rights, you know. They made like all these female superheroes so there was something to do with weird rights and...
Oh, so it
would
have been a Spider-Man cartoon, but they made it Spider-Woman for legality shit.
They made like they made She-Hulk and Spider-Woman. I don't want to get too into it, but like it was, there was a reason behind it all, and it was legalities and stuff like that, or to something with the rights. Yeah, it's been crazy.
And I'll tell you something that really dated it, beyond obviously the animation and the music.
Beyond every element of it.
There was one thing, though, that just kind of made me think of my childhood. And it was when they referred to making something the consistency of peanut brittle.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what peanut brittle is, Fraser?
Oh, that sounded all time. It's like it's like a little thing you can eat, I guess.
It's a sweet. It's very, very brittle toffee caramel stuff with quite a heavy amount of peanuts in it. And my gran loved peanut brittle.
I feel like it'd be bad for your teeth. That just destroyed.
Oh yeah, it was bad. My gran loved peanut brittle. I never really liked it. And I absolutely associate it with childhood and my gran and really old-fashioned sweets. So kind of the contemporaries of cola cubes and what are those? Herbals. And
I did like we had, and Werther's Originals.
You and your Werther's Originals. I'm not that old. My tash isn't that grey. No. It's greying.
I know, I was talking about your grandparents. And then
oh yeah, of course you were.
And speaking of food, Aunt May's wheat cakes make an appearance. Like, hey!
No, okay, so credit where credit's due. I thought they really got Aunt May right in this. I thought across both episodes we watched.
Yeah.
She was really lovely. The voice actor was perfect. She was... They played the... She's so sweet and kind and it makes her naive thing really well.
Yeah, Spider-Man's like, Peter's like, can these two friends just randomly stay with me now? And she's like, oh yeah, go on. I was like, bloody hell, alright, Aunt May.
Yeah, Aunt May was really nicely done. I think it was a very true to the comics thing and I liked the voice actor. Yeah, Aunt May was done lovely.
She was lovely.
And I love Aunt May. She's as characters go, you think all these cool characters like Spider-Man and I don't know, the Black Cat or whatever. But Aunt May is probably one of the most beautiful things about Spider-Man as a thing, you know?
Did you know Sony had a plan to give her own movie?
That's pushing it.
Literally, like, you know, before the whole Sony Marvel deal, Aunt May was gonna, like, when they did the leaks, you know, from when North Korea, like, took their emails. One of the emails was like, I think it was Agent Aunt May.
Oh, no.
I would have just thought if it was like just a sweet old Aunt May, like having to go on these spy missions, but not really knowing what was going on, and like offering like an evil villain like some wheat cakes or whatever. Just
Brilliant.
Like, oh, would you like some wheat cakes?
Brilliant.
Oh, you're trying to take over the world. Oh, sorry, I won't. As you were.
Should we carry? Right. So we liked Aunt May. We liked the voice actor for Aunt May. Should we talk about the voice acting in this?
Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. The show was very Scooby-Doo and like...
Yes.
There was a lot of like the sound effects and stuff like that.
Yes.
And then the Iceman, we were like, oh my goodness, he sounds like Fred from Scooby-Doo. It turns out it was Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And then, and the Spider-Man, you recognise the voice, was Bumblebee in some of the Transformers.
In Transformers, which is another program I loved as a kid.
And Bobby Drake, the guy who voiced Bobby Drake, was also a load of the Decepticons.
But I felt that they were supposed to be these teenage kids, and they sounded like they were in their 40s.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work.
I feel like there was a lot of that, though, in the animation. It's like even I love the 90s cartoon, but he sounds and looks like... The look part you can even change. Like, he's supposed to be this high school, and he does not look like high school in the 90s cartoon. No. In this, to be fair, I think they were supposed to do, like, they were college students, so it was, like, gay. But the voice, again, maybe could have gone a bit younger.
Yeah, Aunt May was great. I had no problem with Angelica, Firestarter, whatever you want to call her. But I thought that Spidey and
Fred.
Iceman...
Not Fred. I think because I've got him as Fred in my head, that is a teenager. Even maybe Fred never did sound like a teenager. Also, voices Scoob as well.
True. But I thought the voice acting for the Green Goblin was great.
Yeah, spot on.
Really, really good. Really kind of Mark Hamill style, Joker cackly.
Yeah, just what you need really, cheesy.
Yeah.
That sometimes with these shows, cheesy is good. You just want the baddie to be bad.
In the second episode, I thought that
Beetle
was too cheesy, and that voice for Tony Stark did not work for me.
I think they were trying to do like an old, like they just went deep with it, and I think they were trying to establish that Tony Stark was older than the kids. But by doing that, they just went too deep, and it was Tony Stark was in the second episode.
He was. Are we finished on... Oh, no, I'm not quite finished on the first episode, so we'll go back.
Keep going. Yeah.
Penelope Pitstop. We'll carry on talking about the fucking voice act.
Mona Osborne. So they went for the nephew of Norman Osborn, who I was like...
Niece. She's
niece, yeah, sorry.
Female.
Niece of Norman Osborn. I was like...
Mona Osborne. But she was basically a plot device.
Yeah.
And she was like...
kidnapped, yeah.
And she was like fucking Penelope Pitstop. Help! Help! And I was like, oh, this is very 80s.
Yeah.
Feminism wasn't a thing to these people.
Yeah.
It was... I don't feel like the plots were as sophisticated as they would be in a modern Spider-Man cartoon for the same age group.
Yeah, which is crazy. It would be interesting to, watch all the many various Spider-Man animes, because I feel like it does dip and change, like the quality of the stories and the qualities of the shows definitely does.
Well, you've pretty much done that, haven't you?
I will say, I'm pretty sure the best two for me are the 90s one and Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man is one that I've been meaning to watch for a long, long time.
Funny you say that.
On your recommendation. But we'll...
Foreshadowing.
Maybe we'll come back to that.
Foreshadowing.
Oh, let's talk about the sound effects. The transition.
We used that for a YouTube video.
Yeah, we did.
We did a trailer reaction to Far From Home. And
we did, and you used that.
I was like, where does that look for me? I went, I used that for the... It's a good video, you should check out.
You should. I'll put it on the socials when this episode goes up. But that is iconic. The theme tune was not. No. Any of the other music was not. But that little transition.
With the webbing.
Yeah, and it was... I'd forgotten about that, where it came from. I think I thought it was from one of the other Spider-Man cartoons. Yeah, because
it does seem...
But it's Amazing Friends.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I feel like each Spider-Man cartoon is given something to the lore of Spider-Man, in a way, or something you remember. Which is, it's nice, Some have more iconic theme songs, some have more iconic storylines or character interpretations, and then some just have a nice little transition.
Anyway, let's move on to the origin of the Spider-Friends, episode 21.
Yeah.
And Would you like to explain to the listeners how we came up with the second episode that we watched?
Oh yeah, of course. It's a little cheeky little self-plug. So we found this amazing article.
I thought it was excellent.
It was a really good article.
Yeah, I thought it was
like
excellent.
The best episode of every animated Spider-Man. So it had all of the animated Spider-Mans on there and all their best episodes, and it ranked them in a very convenient order as well. So it wasn't, it all had all their IMDb scores. So for example, this one had an 8, but it didn't rank them in like. So the first one you scroll to wasn't like, let's say, the 60s one. Because of time, it was whatever's the lowest ranking and all that. And this one, we found out that there was 2 great episodes.
And who wrote this excellent article, Fraser?
Some guy called Fraser Summers. And, it seems like a respectable.
I've heard he's a very good writer.
Yeah, 19 articles on comic book resources.
Is there?
There's a few on What Culture, but probably stick with comic book resources.
I mean, what I'll do is I'll get this excellent writer's work and I'll put it on our social stuff. Yeah.
I heard he's dyslexic as well, so
I heard he's really good looking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Really good looking, but you probably can't have sex with him.
I was going to say you probably can't tell because, he's only a writer.
And yeah,
can't
that too.
see that.
No.
Yeah.
Basically, Fraser wrote an article, didn't you?
Yeah, I wrote a few actually. A lot of them segued pretty well to our podcast. It's almost like I have a distinct interest in this kind of stuff.
Funny that. So yeah, we chose it because there were 2 that had a similar rating, but we really wanted to hear Stanley's voice.
Yeah, and like the little narration bit.
Oh,
because he did narrate quite a bit in the animated stuff. Like he narrated the last episode of the 90s Spider-Man. And this was at the point where Stan was like interacting with the fans, and it just shows how much of
Stan's soapbox.
Yeah,
he used to do in the comics.
He was to comics, where like he was, checking all the calls and stuff like that. And just the fact, I don't know if it was like the cynic in you can say that, like not in you, just like in
people,
the general you, the royal you, not ever the royal we.
Yeah.
The cynic in you might say, oh, no one actually said this, it's just their way of making an episode. But it's quite possible that people did like write into Stan and say like, I want to see the origin of this. And it's episode 21 of like, the first season. Like they didn't start off with an origin story. They
they just went
wanted people
straight
to
in.
know, yeah.
But it was very Marvel of the time though. Stan's soapbox was where he talks to people about human rights, humanitarian issues, in issues of the comics. They didn't need to do that. Yeah. And he did, you're right, interact with... Yeah, he did interact with people and they did listen and reply to their readers quite a lot. And it's just very, very Marvel having Stan narrate and basically create this story that... I don't think they even really thought about it before.
Because like Stan can just tell you like a bedtime story, and like it was all based around the question of, which is a very like it's a question not this that isn't exclusive to this show. It's happens a lot in sitcoms, and Friends answered it at one point. It was like, how can these college kids afford to live in this thing, all this technology?
Yeah,
and it was like Stan received the question. He was like, oh, let's make an episode to answer it, and it all ties in with Tony. They helped Tony Stark out.
It was a shit answer.
No, they helped Tony Stark out, and Tony Stark gave him the technology. He's rich, and it wasn't like we were joking how like, oh, we should find an episode that's got a link to No Way Home. And it's kind of linked to the MCU because, like, Tony, is kitted out.
Tony Stark with his weird voice.
Yeah, weird voice.
Weird voice.
Equally weird touch.
And, we're used to Stark Industries as a thing being very sophisticated. Yeah. And the logo for Stark Industries in the MCU is very kind of like, that could be a company's logo. Yeah. Whereas this was just like Stark had been scribbled on a wall.
It was international as well, and it was like, it was.
And
the Beatles as well.
Even his tech was just shit. It was called,
it
was called the Power Booster.
Oh, yeah.
And you press the button and it boosts the power by
powers you've got, yeah.
And it's like, do not put the Power Booster anywhere near electrics. It will blow the circuits and take out a city. As tech goes, it is the very worst idea you could possibly come up with. And again, we've been spoiled.
Yeah.
Any superhero stuff as a kid, I pounced on. It was perfect. It was wonderful. It was what I wanted because I loved superheroes.
Yeah.
Whereas the MCU now, we absolutely demand things to make sense, things to be complex, things to be intelligent. this was none of those things, but it didn't matter to me when I was a kid.
It's like partners or friendships, you know, as a kid. It's like, oh, we're in the same school, whatever that counts.
Yeah.
And then when you get older, you know, we actually should have some things in common, and it should make sense that we're friends. And...
I think I'm more selective with friendships these days.
Yeah.
And you can stay.
When you're a kid, yeah, it's just like... Oh.
You can stay, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Good. You can stay.
At this point in the... how many other episodes we've done?
But no, I mean, you're right. I think there's more scope in a modern society to be selective about literally everything.
Yeah,
from friendships
now, isn't there? Yeah.
to telly.
Yeah, like everyone's just compete. Like, that's why competition is good, because, like, you know, it incites for better stuff. Like, I never get why people... like going again back to superheroes, why they want we want DC to fail, or we want the Sonyverse to fail, because if that fails, then we only have one outlet, which means we'll get less stuff, and, you know, it's not got the competition to thrive. Like, there's a lot of people, this is Spider-Man related, that will give grief to, like, the Venomverse.
Oh, I like the Venomverse.
Yeah, but, like, without that, like, if, like, they're like, oh no, Sony should just give Spider-Man back to Disney. This year, we got 2 Spider-Man related movies, Venom and No Way Home. Do you think we're getting that if Spider-Man's just at Disney? No, we get like one every 3 years or whatever.
When do we get the new...
Spider-Verse is 2023-4 maybe.
I love that you knew what I was going to ask.
I know. But that's what I mean, we get that as well. Like, Sony built 3 franchises whilst working with Disney, whereas if it was just with Disney, we'd get 1.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Disney. I love what they're doing. Obviously, I love Disney.
I hate Disney, but I love the stuff they produce.
This podcast shows.
Yeah, you love Disney.
Shows, but
yeah. But yeah, the Power Booster was a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
And the Beetle was just...
He's always
ridiculous.
been a terrible, like, B-list, like Spidey villain, hasn't he? But it was funny that, like, he was the one to choose for the origin. I was like, okay. I would have thought Shocker, maybe, because Shocker's always sort of in his...
Shocker's a bit of a jobber, isn't he?
Yeah, Shocker's always sort of in his origin.
Mind you, Beetle's a jobber as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, insider term. Jobber is a wrestling term that means
I guess
a worker that always loses to make other wrestlers look good.
Yeah. Could do that for superheroes as well. I feel like modern media should steal wrestling terms, because it's...
I mean, I think jobber and kayfabe and babyface and heel probably are relatively well known.
Face and heel, I feel, are definitely more, because, like, they're American terms that I feel like are being just used more, like hero villain. But yeah, don't know.
I don't know how we got on to talk about wrestling.
Spider-Man's used to be a wrestler, didn't he?
Clever. But not in this. He was a school kid. Well, maybe we don't know anything about Uncle Ben.
They didn't touch Spider-Man's origin, which I thought they might have done, but maybe they would have done if they had more than one season.
Did you like that they jumped straight into we're all friends, we are doing superhero things?
I'm alright with that, because I think that's how you would have watched it. Like, you would have watched it, or you might not even watch the first episode. You might have watched like the 12th episode. So sometimes with these cartoons, I'm happy to jump straight in, and sometimes, you know, if it's Spider-Man as well, you've seen the origin enough times. Even at this point, there would have been, 2 animated shows before it.
And origin stories, I think if you're a new franchise, are important.
Yeah.
Whereas there is an element of knowing who Spider-Man is.
Yeah, it's like Spider-Man, Hulk, feel like they don't need origins anymore. And that's why the MCU decided not really to go for the origins.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, really.
There was one point in the second episode where we talked briefly about how Firestar did the storm thing and could just go, I've got a costume on now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Iceman shouted, Iceman! And kind of got covered in his cube and turned into ice. Firestar shouted, Firestar! And she kind of like changed costume and turned into Firestar. Yeah. It was at this point that I shouted, gigantic penis! And nothing happened.
I thought it turned into a gigantic penis.
I was very disappointed. I wanted a bigger dick.
Oh no, I think you would have turned into a giant penis.
Shit, you're right. I'm glad it didn't work.
Yeah, could you imagine?
That would have been terrible.
You look like a right dick. Glad I can make you laugh.
Is there anything else you want to talk about on this?
Well, we can't end on that, surely.
And yet we're going to...
Do you have any other notes?
Are you just thinking about gigantic penises,
I'm just
Fraser?
I'm literally trying to think of anything else, but currently my brain's like, Homer Simpson when he's got the monkey with the doing a flip. But it's Spider-Man doing it in a flip.
With his gigantic penis.
It's two friends. At the beginning you said you were more of a Bobby Drake fan.
Mm.
What would you say, looking back now?
So, as a kid, I was very much into the male characters.
Yeah.
So I think there was just a I'm a boy, he's a boy bias at this point because I was so young. I don't really know.
They were hard to gravitate towards.
I didn't really get a huge affection for any of the characters other than Aunt May.
The big side character I grew affectionate for was the dog. The fact they had a dog.
They did have a dog.
I was like, it's like Scooby-Doo.
It was a very camp dog.
Oh, it's so camp, wasn't it? It was like the big bush, yeah.
I think it was probably a King Charles Spaniel.
Yeah.
Like, it had bows in his hair and shit.
Yeah.
It was camp as
Iceman, well gay.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, they didn't know that Iceman was a gay character at this point.
Iceman and Firestar were like a relationship. It was like, see, if they did Johnny Storm, that's the progressive way of doing it.
But that's it.
In our head canon.
I mean, maybe they'll remake it and it will be like a gay relationship with Iceman and Johnny Storm.
No.
Have they linked each other in the comics?
No, Iceman's with one of Wanda's sons, I think.
Oh, okay.
Wiccan, probably, yeah.
Okay.
Because they were like a relationship. I think it's them too, anyway.
Yeah. But, yeah, so obviously,
tell us.
Iceman hadn't come out in the comics at that point, so to expect him to be gay was probably a little bit of a stretch.
I thought it was going to be more camp than he was, to be fair, because it was the 80s, but fair play.
It was kind of campy, but not...
that way.
Campy, but not homoerotic is probably how I describe this cartoon. Yeah. Because there is a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Not by much, but there is.
Not by much. It's a subtle difference.
So, Fraser, it is that time of the episode where I remind you of your top 5 and we have to decide.
This is definitely going to be a reminder because it feels like it's been a long time.
Well, it has for you. It hasn't for anybody else who listens in. I've just released them as our schedule.
As did.
So, at number 5, you've got the Gummy Bears. At number 4, you've got Around the Twists.
Oh, nice.
At number 3, Classic Doctor Who.
Classic.
At number 2, Cyber City Oedo 808. At number 1, Boy Meets World. So where are we putting? Does it make the top 5?
Oh, of course, easy.
Okay, so where are we putting?
Oh wait, does that mean the Gummy Bears are
Gummy Bears are dead. They bounced on their bottoms out of the top 5.
Wow, they bounced onto Iceman's ice in it.
I thought you were going to say Iceman's gigantic penis.
No.
Okay. Does that be terrible?
No, that would not.
That'd be like bestiality.
No.
No.
There's a sharp.
So right, we know we've got rid of the Gummy Bears. They bounced off on their bottoms.
I feel like I would be lying to myself and I would have to change my whole identity if this was not number 1.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous.
It's Spider-Man.
This wasn't number 1 worthy good.
Well, it is for me.
For fuck's sake.
Solely because it had Spider-Man and a dog in.
Really? Yeah. I didn't enjoy this very much. I thought it was outdated and a bit crap. It was fine.
That just shows my thing for Spider-Man.
This is just ridiculous bias.
Honestly,
I can't trust your top 5 ever. Mind you, I didn't trust your top 5 ever again. Anyway, you got rid of Robin and Sherwood and the tripods, and they're great.
Yeah, easy done.
They're great.
They shouldn't have been in the top 5 at any point, really. But
whatever you say.
But yeah, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, they're wall crawling their way to the top.
For fuck's sake!
See, come on, did you not this is so on brand. I mean, it just feels bad that I'm kicking a Disney out for it, but there's still a Disney on there. There's Boy Meets World.
There is.
Because we talked about classic Doctor Who, and I feel like the Doctor Who name itself pushed itself higher into the top 5.
No, I thought the stuff we watched for Doctor Who was exceptional.
I mean, it was good. I have seen better Doctor Who, and I have seen better Spider-Man, but I'm still going to have Spider-Man.
You've just absolutely undermined the entire premise of the podcast and its top 5 by going... Didn't matter whether it was any good, it was Spider-Man, number 1. You're a ridiculous creature.
Were you expecting anything else, though?
No, I wasn't. So, Fraser, What are we watching next time?
I think we should keep this momentum of Spider-Man.
Should we? We've definitely not given massive clues throughout the whole podcast.
We are going to do a Spider-Man. We're not doing the 90s.
Oh
one.
my goodness.
I know, we're doing a Spider-Man. 'Tis the season. The guy in red. We're doing Spectacular Spider-Man.
The one that goes, spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man. I haven't watched it because you told me not to, because we were going to do it on this podcast.
I know, so excited.
Spoilers.
And it's made it on Netflix as well now. I've had the DVDs for years, but I was like, oh, you know, you just bring something out and it's like Temple of Doom and you blow it away. I was like, oh, it's time. But then Netflix.
I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to this. I love Marvel Comics.
I believe this might be a contender to beat Recess. And I'll be surprised.
I will not behave in the horrifically biased way you have. If it gets to my number one, it will be legitimately rather than I love Spider-Man.
I think it's got to make it to the top 5, but I will. Yeah, I feel like this is the one coming.
Just so you know, because he knew he was watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends with me today, Fraser has turned up to my home wearing Marvel top.
But that's
Marvel
just me always.
Socks. Can you get Marvel shorts?
I should have worn. I do have Marvel shorts, yeah. They're not that great, though. From Primark. I do have Spider-Man socks that I could have worn. Imagine if I just came in my Spider-Man outfit.
I mean, you could have worn.
I've definitely seen. So I saw Far From Home in my Spider-Man outfit, and I saw Endgame. Yeah, Endgame in my Spider-Man outfit.
You are a ridiculous human.
It's great. But I'm going to go into my love for Spider-Man. So I expect next time's episode to be a 3 hour long special, and that's just the preview, and then we'll watch the show.
He reined himself in this episode.
I was like, I've got to talk about Spider-Man. I was like, no, I'll keep it. This is a Mark episode. I have to remember it's a Mark. In the back of my head, I was like, it's a Mark episode. Don't be talking about every loving detail of Spider-Man, and no, we'll save that for 2 weeks.
So, if you haven't spotted it, because the new film's coming out, we're having a Spidey month. Yeah. And so next time on Right in the Childhood, we are doing Spectacular Spider-Man.
And I did have a lot of Spider-Man to choose from, but there's a reason I chose this one, and I'm going to it more next time.
Thank you so much.
It's the best.
Thank you so much for listening to Right in the Childhood, and we will see you next time.
Spider friends. Go for it.
That is a terrible catchphrase.
This one we go. Right in the Childhood. Go for it.
No, that's worse. Bye. Right in the Childhood is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Podcast Network. You can follow the show on Twitter at RITCPod. The show's creators and hosts are Mark Adams and Fraser Summers. Follow us on Twitter at MarkAdamsHC and at SpiderPanTweets. The show's logo was created by Carl Bryan and the theme tune composed and performed by Colin Jackson Brown. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed being hit.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you've just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling.
Elsewhere on We Made This.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
So you know how you were both talking about the attractive women and how you spotted a particular one that you liked, etc., etc. Would you like to know what I put in my notes?
Go on then.
Yep. Love the Cuban heels.
They're very nice heels, and the fact he mentions in the behind the scenes later on there, was it a size too small?
Yes.
Yeah. Totally worth it for Cuban heels. For me, I'm 6'1", which is ever so slightly above average. If I get a pair of Cubans, I'm 6'3", and I look like a god.
Yeah.
I love Cuban heels.
Pick a disc.
The Steps formula at that time was player sings. If there's another verse, the fail get it. If they want a little bridge or something like that, they might give it to H or Lisa possibly. But all the hook and everything else would have been played.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I noticed as well, I think Lisa has a lot more kind of solo stuff or solo verses in this album, I think, from what I remember. As well. So the balance is slowly getting more into things. I mean, but it's something that usually happens in all kind of girl/boy groups. Frame to frame.
My first trip to the cinema to see a Bond film was Die Another Day.
The first one I saw in the cinema was The World Is Not Enough. I tried to get into Tomorrow Never Dies. I was just too young, and we got rumbled in the queue, and I was absolutely devastated. She went, "Oh, are you 12 years old?" There was a woman in the queue. I thought, I can't remember if it was the woman behind the box office or not. She basically did like a kind of MI6 job on me and scammed me. And, "Oh, you know, you're not getting in."
It doesn't sound like it took a lot of interrogation. There was no one exactly, holding a rope with knots in it to you.
Exactly. You know, we know how long I'd last in the field.
Are you 12 years old? No. Yes, I am. It's like the stoning in Life of Brian.
He said, "I'm sorry, I thought we'd started."
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.